Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. So I'm going to mostly work a little bit more on damage right now. Oh, that's weird. Let me just move this down. There we go. Okay, so we got like some pretty good damage already going on. I just want to kind of like play around with it a little bit more. So let's see, we have this type of damage. Non-uniform blur. Yeah, okay, so it kind of like fades out. That should be fine. Angles should also not really matter too much. I just want to kind of like play around with my noise a little bit and just see if I can get maybe like an even better result. So it's often easier to just look at your norm map when you are deciding about this stuff. So let's do in B&W spots 3, let's do clouds 2, and let's do like a moisture noise. And it's very easy. You basically go to your normal. Let's make this a bit bigger. And we simply swap out different noises and just see which one looks best. You see, because they all look slightly different. And I want to go for something that's a little bit more smooth. Wow, the clouds too. It does have an interesting effect, but not what I'm looking for. Moist noise also not. So clouds 3 is pretty good. I think I like it more than clouds 2 probably. Yeah, clouds 2 is like really sharp. But then there's also one. There is a... let's see, let's do B&W spots 1. Just to double check. Okay, so that one is not very good. Okay, so I'm gonna go with B&W spots 3 in the end. Because it has like a slightly softer look. And I just like that a little bit more in general. And for the rest, yeah, you can also, as I said before, play around with your angle. To get to a point that you like. And I'm going to set my intensity probably a little bit lower, maybe 1-ish. That's still, here it's still quite a bit. So let's do 0.5 maybe. There we go. So I just want like some random small damages. Maybe 0.7 on here. Okay, so we got this stuff done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to give it like a tiny bit more edge chips. And the way that I want to do that is I already showed you adding a slope blur grayscale. We plug this in here, and for our slope we grab a moisture noise. Have I already used it? If you already used a noise, you can always just reuse it, but looks like I haven't, so I'm gonna plug this in, samples all the way up, mode to minimum, and set the intensity like really low. So 0.05 maybe. We just want to give it like a few small edge chips. Let's do 0.03. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually gonna grab my moisture noise. I'm going to add a transform, and I'm going to press the X2 down here, which will scale up our noise. And what it will do in here is, if I set this a little bit higher, so 0.05, you can see that it will basically, the more you scale it up, the bigger the details are going to be. So scale it up once, and that's looking pretty good. But now we do have the problem that it is no longer tileable. See? So whenever you scale something up, you can scale it down easily with it keeping tileable, but not up. So then you just want to add a very quick make it tile photo grayscale. And honestly, all you can do is you can just press enter and then just press D to dock it. So that it is not in the way. And that's like the simplest way to just make something tileable very quickly and works great for noises. Okay, having this one done, all we need to do now is we are going to blend. And I'm just going to hold Shift. Move my inputs over here. And then move this one down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my original down here at the bottom. I'm going to have my damaged one at the top over here. Because if I now blend this using a opacity, I can basically add the damages to like general areas in my texture. Because right now the damages are everywhere. So I want to go ahead and go for like a clouds 2. And probably like plug that in or something like that. And now you can see the difference that it's not everywhere. And if you want, you can even add a histogram scan on top of this, which will allow you to basically control roughly where. And if you want, you can also use your contrast. Yeah, it will just in general roughly control where you want to actually have your damages and if you want to have more or less of them. So if we go into our, here, see, now we get these type of edge chips. So that's looking pretty good. You can also play around with your opacity to basically reduce the intensity of them. So I don't need them to be very strong, so maybe like 0.25 at the most. And that will just give me like an extra layer of damages. So now we are pretty much done with our edges. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just give it like some very small random, can I see? They are basically like basic chips. I cannot really see anything properly in here for the reference, but I know what I want. So basically all I want is I want to have a simple blend. And then I want to grab, for example, a dirt 2 over here. And the dirt 2, we can use these basically as like little chips. So let's see. Let's first of all make them a little bit smaller probably. So let's set the scale to 2. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a histogram scan. And that will give me like a bit more control over how many spots I want, like this. So I can just increase or decrease them. I do not want to have too many, so I'm just going to decrease them to around 0.3. Then I want to have a very quick blur high quality grayscale. And this is just because right now they are way too sharp. So I'm going to set this like super low, like 0.05-ish, maybe. You can check it out. If you look at your norm map, you can kind of like check out which, here 0.07, see. So you can see which one would work best. If we set this to 0, it looks way too sharp. So 0.05, I think, works best. And now all we need to do is we just need to plug this into our blend. Set our overlay to subtract, because we want to have these as black, so that they are actually pushing in. And then simply tone down your opacity a little bit, so that in your norm map, here, tone it down even more, it will just become like these really, really thin looking specks. Here, 0.02 maybe even. They are going to just be like very, very subtle little imperfections like this. And that's pretty much all you need. Now from this point on we can just focus on our base color and our roughness for like any extra details. So if we go in here, let's reload this or turn it on and off, let's see. Okay, I'm going to make those specs a little bit stronger because apparently they do not show up as much as I expected to. So let's set this to like 0.05 and give that a second to like export, and then let's try that. Sometimes I like to go to like my free cam, for example, which allows me to just move around. Okay, here, see, so they are definitely there. It's just like from a distance they become less, but I do not want to increase them. These are really like small details for when you are very close up. So here I can see them like a tiny bit. If you would change your tiling, see, you can see them a lot better. Perfect. So we got this stuff done. Now what we're going to do is we are mostly going to focus on our base color. Our base color is a little bit tricky, so even if you look at like over here, so they have like a lot of damage in here. We will not actually be doing something like that for now. We might make a variation with damage, but the general base color should be quite basic. So I'm probably gonna go somewhere a blend between this type of base color with like a little bit of dirt on it, but then I'm going to grab like a more grayish color, or maybe like a more concrete style color for the rest. The reason I kind of like want to figure that out right now is because I can actually use a color picker to kind of like decide which color I'm gonna go for. Let's just get started with maybe like a sort of like a concrete color like this. Here, if I just double check. Yeah, like a whitish concrete color should be fine. So the way that we're going to do that is we are going to go up to Substance Designer. First of all, let's just go ahead and let's grab all of these pieces. Right click and add a frame. And I can just call this frame height map. This will keep it nice and organized. And the height map is automatically just converted to a norm map. So that's also nice. So now that we have done that, what I'm going to do is we are going to get started by creating a general base color base. I know that's a weird word. For this one, my absolute favorite is always the B&W Spots 2 because it is a really sharp noise. Basically, for this to work best, I recommend quite a sharp noise and not something too soft. And what I then like to do is I like to add a gradient map. And with a gradient map, what you can do is you can map colors to different gradient values. So you can see here that we have a lot of values. Now the cool thing is that I can actually pick gradients. So I can actually pick colors from here. And I can use those in here. So let's say that I go up here and I want to pick colors from this area, and then I'm going to add the dirt later on top. I press pick gradient and then I just click and drag, and then you can see that it picked a few colors. You can just keep trying to do this. You can even, here, if I go over the green, for example, you can see that it will pick a lot of green colors. This is also great if you like want to create some moss. But I'm basically going to just keep doing this until I get something that I like, and I can see it down here in the bottom. So this is just like the general base. Here, this one I like. It's subtle, but it still has like a bunch of information in here. So instantly it feels like you have something that is like a little bit concrete style, something in that direction. So that's quite cool. Now having this one, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to probably go ahead and add like a few more like scratches and maybe like some general damages in here. What I actually like to do for this is something that I don't think many people tend to do, or they forget about it. So there are a lot of noises, yes, inside of Substance Designer. However, there are way more noises inside of Substance Painter, and you can actually just grab those noises and you can import them in here. So because of all the file types within Substance, they are universal. Whatever you use in Substance Painter, you can use also in Designer. So I like to just open up Substance Painter and go down here to the noises. Because these kind of scratches and everything, yes, I can make them inside of Substance Designer, but it is way quicker for me to just simply find them in here. So what I like to do is I like to go down here, and here you can see like a lot of noises. So you basically just choose whatever you want. I like to just hover over it, and then it will give me like a larger preview, and then I can choose whatever I want. Now there is one I have in mind, this one over here. And one of the reasons I like it is because I made it. So these are actually made by me, but they are included in the default Substance. So I'm going to go right click, show in Explorer. So we have grunge, charcoal and cobwebs. And what you can do is you can go back to Designer. Here you can see that when you have it open, you have the charcoal and cobwebs, and they are just .sbsr files, meaning that I can simply drag them in, and I will have my grunges in here. So first of all, I'm going to take out a few, or I'm going to add a few extra details that we actually use in here, which is honestly, it's only like these spots over here. So we add a blend. In the bottom, we plug in our spots colors. And then in the top, we want to just go ahead and go for like a brownish color, most likely. Yeah, brown. And what I can do with that is, or you can go ahead and you can just add a uniform color that is brown. But sometimes I like to just go ahead and grab like, or duplicate my gradient map. And then I like to simply, if I have any image that has like some brown spots, I like to pick gradient and I just like to kind of do this. Because it sometimes gives me like a slightly better result, as you can see over there. Or maybe we can do like something like over here. And you just want to give it like a lot of different noise. This looks quite good. So I'm gonna, for example, pick this one. And once that is done, I'm going to simply plug it into the top. And then you can see that it will just add like these extra little spots down here. And the spots, they also kind of like blend over a little bit better because it uses the same noise. Now having these spots done, I can add a blend. And now I can choose for like my main dirt. Please note, do not make the dirt too strong. If you make it too strong, it will be too noticeable when you start tiling your texture. And I will show you in just a second what I mean. So I got these two over here. And let's get started with the charcoal one and see how that looks. I want to go in here and invert it. That looks pretty cool. And this is what I mean with too strong. If I press space, you can see that the tiling is very repetitive. Now we are going to blend between different textures, so don't worry about it. This one is still going to be like the base one, like the clean one. We also have like our cobwebs over here, which also actually looks quite nice. And it has like a general random seed over here. Cobwebs or charcoal. Maybe if I kind of like combine them. Let's do like a very light cobwebs on top of my charcoal. So if we go for like an max lighten, let's tone this one down like a little bit and let's see if that looks better. Because no one says that we can only use one if we want. Here, see, we can just add like a little bit extra. Okay, so that's looking pretty cool. See, so it kind of like goes hand in hand. And this will give you much more specific details. See all these scratches over here? If I had to go ahead and do all of those things within Substance Designer, it would just take me a lot longer. But we are working on getting results fast and really nice results. So now you can just tone down the opacity, because as I said before, I don't want to have it too strong until I get something in like this direction. Something like that. Okay, awesome. Now there's one thing you might think like, Emil, aren't you forgetting something? I am, yes. And that is the grout. That is something that we are going to work on now. And the grout is just going to be like this dark, slightly darker grout, basically. So I'm just going to use, let's use like this area. So what we can do is we can go ahead and probably just redo our gradient again. Pick gradient. Sorry, I'm working here in 1080p because I'm recording. Normally I do this on a 4K screen and then it's not that difficult. Or I use multiple 4K screens. So we got something like this. Now it is still a little bit too light. Okay, I don't like that. Whenever it is too light, don't worry about it. So you can like plug this in here and use like these colors. I don't like that one. I actually like the one previously. Can I undo? There we go. This is the one that I liked. What I tend to do is I tend to just add a very simple HSL node behind it. And with this, if I set my lightness down, and I can even play around with my saturation to make it like a little bit duller, it's just going to give me like a general color, and I immediately have control over like the darkness. Next, we just add a simple blend to our other blend. And then all we need to do is we need to grab a mask that is specifically from like the outside. So we can probably just grab this one over here, or probably this one, the blur one. So let's grab an, oops, not that one. Grab an invert grayscale. Plug in our mask before we add all of our edge damages. And simply throw this in here. Because the edge damages, they do not actually hit the mask. They are just on the surface. But now as you can see, we just have some very quick grout, just like that. And because we add this after the blur, it will also have like a little bit of like a softness to it. One last thing that I sometimes do is I add like a blend. And then I add like a curvature along with a gradient map. The reason I need to add a gradient map is because I'm trying to go from a grayscale image to a color image. You can see it here in the inputs. If I do not do that, it will give us an error. See? Because it only allows color. Next, just simply grab your norm map, plug it into your curvature. Don't forget to set the norm map form to OpenGL, because that's the format that we use. And then play around with your intensity, and basically with this, what we can do is if we set our blending mode to art subtract, here we can give it like some very small edge highlights, which will also immediately give it like a little bit more depth. The only thing is that it does add our noise over here, and I don't really want that. So instead I'm just going to duplicate my normal, and I'm going to plug it in before we add our noise. See? And then it will instantly just remove our noise, because our noise can just stay nice and soft. I just want to highlight the edges of our actual tiles over here. The damage on the tiles is not very strong, is it? Let's have a look. Non-uniform blur. Yeah, I cannot use that one, actually. I'll see how it looks. I might want to just like play around with this a little bit more. But what we can do for now is we can plug this into our base color, which means we now have a base color, a normal, AO, and height. So the last one would need to be our roughness, which we can just create now. And then in the next chapter we will do some balancing and creating variations. For our roughness, super simple. Add a grayscale conversion, and we are going to first of all grab the base, and we are going to convert this to a grayscale, because roughness is grayscale. Next, I'd like to add a histogram range, which will give me the option to basically play around first of all with my range. I can set that one quite high. And how lighter something is, how duller it looks, how darker something is, how more shiny it looks. That's the easiest way that I tend to explain it. So let's start with 0.4. Next, add another blend and plug in the mask of your actual grunges, because this mask is already a grayscale. And you want to basically set this to be Multiply or art? No, I want to set this to art and then tone it down. So the dirt will now become slightly duller looking, so it stands out a little bit more. Once you've done that, you can also go ahead and you can add another blend and plug in your grout mask. And if you set this one also to art, you can make your grout a lot more duller than the rest, so that once again it doesn't really show up as much. And I think for now that should be fine. So let's start with this. We can also do like some edge highlights and everything later on. Okay, or shall we do that now? We can do a blend and we can grab our curvature. Because a curvature you can, as I said before, use as edge highlights. And then if I play around with my noise, I also forget which one or I can use a high pass. Yeah, let's leave that for now. I'm going to probably add some edge highlights in like a little bit. But for now, I can just go ahead and I can save my scene. It should have all of these textures now exported, so we can actually preview them. And then in the next chapter, we will just go ahead and we will fix any problems. So I'm going to grab my base color and drag it into the albedo map. You can see that it's a little bit darker. Let's grab my roughness and throw it into the roughness map over here. So all of our maps are now here. You can see that these are our base colors. It's starting to look good, but we still need a lot of work. First of all, I like to quickly go into my sky and I like to just have a look at my presets, because we are gonna go for like an, I don't know, like a outdoor style preset. So maybe like early construction. I just like to double click and just look at like a bunch of them. Don't go for something too yellowish, because then it will look not as good. So I'm trying to find something that is fairly neutral. And that is also, it has like maybe a little bit of green in it. And it is in the open air. But I also, of course, want to get like some general reflections in here. So just give me a second. This is important. So we just want to kind of like go through here and see if we can find courtyard brick building. Let's keep that one in mind. And I definitely need to work on my roughness and everything. Sunset, no, that would be too much. Just try to get something that has like roughly the same colors as that your environment would have. Our environment has buildings and it has greenery. So we can know based upon that what we kind of like need to get. Oh, they added a lot more maps. All of these are new. I must have had them when I updated. That's cool. But I'm not going to check them out yet, because I would need to like download them and everything, and that's slow. Okay, so it looks like that the best one was definitely the courtyard bricks buildings. Where are you? Courtyard. This one. I think this one was, yeah, it's quite neutral. I'm then going to also play around with my brightness a little bit more and set it to maybe like 1.5. And I can play around with my lights over here. And give that also some brightness to basically, you see, just increase some of my lighting and just give like a nice looking material render or something like this. Okay, so this is looking pretty cool. So now you can see that we get like a better neutral look. Based upon this, I can, for example, set my ambient occlusion a little bit down. And I can know things like, I think actually the color is pretty good. But for example, what we will do in the next chapter is we will do stuff like playing around with our, over here with like our texture and stuff like that. Make it like a little bit darker. So that is something that we can do. We can also play around and like increase our dirt on top of this. That would be another thing. And maybe also in here, reduce the amount of like the grout. And then when you would switch back, you would very quickly get like a slightly different look. And if you hold shift and right click, you can also rotate your sky around. Until we get something that we like. But the roughness, we will mostly look at these areas. See, so you can see that the roughness is starting to look quite a bit better. Anyway, just don't forget to save all of your scenes and let's continue to the next chapter.